What if I told you that everything you believed about winter survival isn't entirely true? Most of us are accustomed to thinking that without fire and a warm home, a person is doomed to perish on the first frosty night. However, the indigenous peoples of the Great Plains and northern forests have proven the opposite for centuries. They knew how to spend nights in the open prairie or snow-covered taiga without matches or permanent shelter. This was not magic or superhuman endurance, but a rigorous system of knowledge. Watch the video to the end to learn how ancient methods of thermoregulation allowed Native Americans to sleep on the snow and wake up full of energy. To begin with, I will reveal the most closely guarded secret of indigenous people's survival, which completely changes our understanding of heat. We are used to thinking that heat must be produced by lighting a fire, but the Lakota and Cheyenne Indians knew that heat must first and foremost be preserved. In their philosophy, the human body is itself a powerful energy generator that never shuts down. The main task was to prevent this energy from dissipating into the cold night air. They perceived their surroundings not as an enemy, but as a system of layers that could be used for insulation. Instead of fighting the cold, they learned to redirect its flow. Native Americans used the concept of the so-called second body, which they created from animal skins. A buffalo hide was not just clothing, but a complex engineering structure with unique properties. Bison fur is incredibly dense and capable of retaining a huge volume of still air. This still air became the invisible barrier that separated biological heat from the icy wind. A properly tanned hide worked better than any modern sleeping bag, ensuring heat circulation inside the cocoon. Without understanding this basic principle, survival in the Great Plains would have been absolutely impossible. Particular attention was paid to how exactly to put on and use these layers of protection. The Indians never tightened their clothes because they knew that compressing the fabric would stop blood flow and deprive the clothes of their air layer. Clothes had to fit loosely, allowing heat to move freely from the center of the body to the extremities. This allowed them to maintain a stable temperature even when they were completely immobile. Any sudden movement in tight clothing could lead to the loss of precious heated air. The wisdom of the ancestors lay in the ability to freeze and let their inner energy work for them. An important aspect was preparing the skin for extreme conditions through nutrition and hygiene. Plains warriors consumed large amounts of animal fat, which served as internal fuel for warmth. There were also special herbal compounds and fats that were rubbed on exposed areas of skin to protect against frostbite. This created a thin film that prevented moisture evaporation and protected the pores from the icy air. The body became more resistant to temperature changes due to proper preparation of the metabolism. Such comprehensive preparation turned a person into an autonomous system capable of withstanding the harsh winter. Sleeping without a fire required a special psychological attitude and control over breathing. The Indians practiced techniques that allowed them to slow down their metabolism while maintaining a high temperature of their internal organs. They learned to inhale cold air through their noses so that it had time to warm up before reaching their lungs. This prevented the body from cooling down from the inside and conserved the heart's resources. Proper breathing was as important a tool as a warm wolf or bear fur blanket. The ability to control one's biological rhythms was a vital skill for every hunter. Do you think modern people, accustomed to comfort, could master such a technique in one winter? We are very interested in your point of view, so please write about it in the comments. Your opinion helps us better understand how relevant ancient knowledge is today. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next episodes about forgotten technologies of the past. We regularly publish unique content that you won't find in history textbooks. By joining our community, you will be the first to learn the secrets of indigenous peoples' survival. Want to learn a secret that will change your life and your idea of choosing a place to sleep? Native Americans never went to sleep where night simply caught them, even if their strength was running out and their bodies demanded immediate rest. They understood well that the wrong decision could cost them their health or even their lives. For them, night was not a time to relax, but a separate challenge that had to be prepared for. Every step before bedtime mattered, because the cold did not forgive mistakes. That is why choosing a place to sleep was considered part of survival. not comfort. Indigenous peoples knew that the landscape had its own energy and thermal zones that could not be seen without experience. They observed the land for years and passed this knowledge down from generation to generation. The surface of the earth could either take away heat or help to retain it. Spending the night without a fire meant searching for a natural source of protection from the cold. It could be a slope, a tree, or a rock, but the choice was never random. Even fatigue did not negate the need to think. An experienced tracker always paid attention to concave landforms, which helped retain body heat. Such places provided protection from the wind and created a feeling of shelter. Cold air usually rolled downhill, while warmer air lingered higher up. This knowledge was based on constant observation, not guesswork. People felt the difference with their bodies and remembered it. Over time, such skills became instinctive. Choosing the wrong place meant losing energy in just a few hours. In freezing conditions, this led to severe hypothermia before dawn. A person could fall asleep and never wake up. Therefore, the place to sleep was chosen as carefully as the place to hunt or camp. A mistake at night was more dangerous than a mistake during the day. That is why experience was valued more than strength. One of the most effective methods was to use so-called thermal pockets in the folds of the terrain. The Indians noticed how the air behaved in the mountains and on the plains. They knew that cold air is heavier and always flows downwards. The lowlands looked comfortable, but were deadly dangerous. The temperature there was always lower than in the surrounding area. Therefore, the Indians deliberately avoided such places, even if they were flat and dry. Instead, they chose small ledges on the slopes where the air was more stable. Another good option was considered to be places under the dense crowns of coniferous trees. Such trees created a special microclimate. It was always warmer under them than in open spaces. The needles acted as a natural umbrella that kept the heat close to the ground. They also weakened the wind and prevented the snow from settling in a thick layer. The surface under the tree remained softer and drier. A thick layer of fallen needles served as an excellent insulator from the frozen ground. This allowed the heat to be retained even without a fire. A properly chosen tree could raise the temperature in the sleeping area by several important degrees. For modern people, this may seem insignificant, but in extreme cold, even a small difference can be decisive. These degrees meant preserved energy and peaceful sleep. It was details like these that distinguished the survivors from those who did not live to see the morning. Snow played a special role in nighttime survival, which the subarctic Indians called a white blanket. They did not perceive it only as a source of cold. On the contrary, snow was considered protection if handled correctly. Its properties were well studied in practice. People knew how to use it to their advantage. Contrary to popular belief, snow is an excellent insulator due to the large amount of air inside it. The Cree and Athabascan peoples skillfully applied this knowledge in harsh conditions. They created temporary shelters right in the snowdrifts. This was done quickly and without unnecessary effort. The main thing was to block the wind and retain body heat. They did not build complex shelters because they did not have the time or energy to do so. People simply burrowed into the snow, forming a small space around themselves. Inside such a snow cave, the temperature remained almost constant. Even strong winds outside did not affect the internal heat. This allowed them to survive the night without frostbite or loss of strength. But even the best place won't help if you don't know how to organize the sleeping process properly. In the next chapter, you will learn how the Indians used the method of group warmth and why loneliness in winter was considered the most dangerous test. Are you ready to learn how collective energy allowed entire groups to survive blizzards in the open field? Could you trust your life to physical contact with another person in the wild? This question remains fundamental to all survival schools. What I am about to show you is unlikely to have been seen in Hollywood films about the lives of indigenous peoples. Movies often simplify or romanticize such scenes. The reality was much more practical and harsh. When it came to sleeping in extreme cold without a fire, Native Americans used a unique method called the living cocoon. This method was the result of centuries of survival experience. It had nothing to do with improvisation. This method was based on the complete fusion of a person with their equipment and the environment into a single closed system. The Lakota Indians developed a technique of swaddling themselves in skins, which turned a warrior into a motionless but very warm object. In this state, a person seemed to disappear from the outside world. Their task was not to move and not to lose heat. Any unnecessary movement was considered a mistake. It was important not just to cover yourself with the skin, but to wrap it around yourself so that there were no gaps for cold air to get in. Even a small gap could lead to heat loss. The Indians paid special attention to this. They used special tendon ties to secure this fur cocoon. The knots were tightened tightly, but not so tightly as to restrict blood circulation. The uniqueness of this method was that a special microclimate was created inside such a cocoon. The heat emitted by the skin gradually warmed the inner layer of fur. After a while, a stable temperature was established inside. It was as if a person was in a closed, warm space. This reduced the need for energy. The outer skin of the hide acted as a membrane that did not allow moisture to penetrate from the outside. Wind and snow could not get inside. If a person began to sweat a little, the fur absorbed the moisture, removing it from the body. This prevented hypothermia, which often occurs precisely because of moisture. The Indians understood this danger very well. They knew that moisture meant death in freezing conditions, so they used dry grass linings. This grass was carefully selected and dried in advance. It was placed between the body and the skin. This layer improved insulation. In the morning, it could be easily replaced. This grass worked as an additional sorbent and insulator. It absorbed moisture and retained heat. This approach allowed them to stay dry and warm throughout the night. Even in severe frost, the body maintained a stable temperature. This was critical for survival. The second unique technique involved using the thermal inertia of the bison or bearskin itself. Before going to sleep, the skin could be kept in the sun or worn for a long time. The material had time to accumulate heat. This made sleeping much safer. The warrior did not waste energy warming up the cold fur. When a warrior wrapped himself in it, he immediately found himself in a more comfortable environment. The use of hot stones was also practiced if there had been a fire earlier. They were placed at the feet, where blood circulation is weaker. This helped to warm the body evenly. Such details were of great importance. But if there was no fire at all, they used bags of dry sand, which also had good heat capacity. The sand slowly released the accumulated heat. These little tricks helped them survive the most critical hours before dawn. It was at this time that the temperature dropped to its lowest. A mistaken calculations could cost a life. Particular attention was paid to the position of the body during such sleep, which resembled the fetal position. The Indians curled up into a tight ball. Their knees were pressed to their chests, and their arms protected their stomachs. This reduced the surface area of the body. Heat loss was minimized. This position allowed all the heat to be concentrated around the vital organs and the heart. Blood circulation remained stable in the center of the body. The limbs cooled more slowly. A person could remain in this position for many hours. Sleep became deep and stable. They could spend a long night in this state, sinking into a trance-like sleep. Time seemed to lose its meaning. The body conserved energy. This ability to curl up compactly inside the skins was honed by generations of nomadic hunters. It was passed down from older to younger generations. Interestingly, the Indians often used their faithful companions, dogs, as living hot water bottles. The dogs of the plains were large and hardy. Their fur retained heat very well. The animal became part of the overall survival system. It was natural and familiar. The dog was placed at the feet or pressed against the back. This created an additional heating contour. A dog's body temperature is higher than that of a human. This made such contact particularly effective in severe frost. The heat was distributed gently and evenly. Dogs also served as living danger sensors. They reacted to extraneous sounds and smells before humans did. This allowed the warrior to completely relax. He could fall into a deep sleep without fear of sudden danger. The trust between man and animal was absolute. This symbiosis between humans and animals was the key to conquering the northern latitudes. Without it, survival would have been almost impossible. It showed how close the connection with nature was. The Indians did not oppose themselves to the world. They became part of it. Like this video if you are impressed by such ingenuity and the ability to live in harmony with nature. This helps us develop the channel and find even more rare facts. Your support motivates us to work with sources and experts. We try to make each issue as in-depth and informative as possible. A like is the easiest way to say thank you for the work we do. It directly influences the development of the project. In the next chapter, we will discuss how to wake up properly after such a night so as not to get heat stroke or frostbite. What you are about to learn will change your perception of the endurance of Wild West warriors during blizzards. For them, blizzards were not a rare disaster, but a familiar part of life. They encountered them on expeditions, on hunts, and during wars. Mistakes at such moments left no second chance. That is why knowledge of how to behave in a storm was valued more highly than weapons. A blizzard on the Great Plains is not just snow, but a dense wall of ice and wind flying at tremendous speed. Such a cold blast sucked the strength out of you in literally minutes. It penetrated clothing, knocked you off your feet, and disoriented you. In these conditions, even the strongest teepee could be destroyed. A person in an open area found themselves in a deadly trap without shelter. However, the Crow and Arapaho Indians did not rely solely on stationary dwellings. They understood that there might be no shelter at all on the way. That is why the technique of so-called active snow burial was developed. It allowed them to survive right in the epicenter of the storm. People did not try to fight the wind with force. They made it their ally. The essence of the approach was to use the elements themselves for protection. The wind, which killed the careless, became a tool for survival. The Indians created a temporary dome of snow right around themselves. It was a dangerous but well-thought-out game with nature. The slightest mistake could lead to death, but experience made this method reliable. The main technique was to sit with your back to the wind and cover yourself with a large bison hide. The hide was pressed tightly to the ground with stones, weapons, or packs. The wind began to actively blow snow onto the sheltered person. After a short time, a dense snowdrift formed around them. It gradually turned into a solid snow armor. An air cavity formed inside the snow mound. It was protected from direct wind and extreme cold. The temperature inside was significantly higher than outside. The person found themselves in a closed cocoon. This allowed them to conserve strength and heat. Even in the most violent blizzard, it was possible to survive inside. The most important thing was to leave an opening for breathing. It should not be clogged with snowflakes or ice. This had to be constantly monitored. Even in a state of semi-sleep, a person remained alert. The slightest carelessness could lead to suffocation. Therefore, rest was never completely deep. The Indians knew well that in such conditions, it was impossible to fall into a deep sleep for long. Hypothermia could develop imperceptibly. To avoid this, they used a system of short cycles. Sleep did not last long and was regularly interrupted by movement. This kept the body functioning. Approximately 15 minutes of rest were followed by a short phase of activity. Without getting up or uncovering himself, the warrior tensed and relaxed his muscles. The large muscles of the legs, back, and abdomen worked especially hard. The blood began to circulate faster. The body generated its own heat. This was a way to stay alive without fire. This technique required tremendous self-discipline. It was necessary to control the body even in a state of fatigue. Every warrior was trained in this from childhood. These skills were practiced during winter hunting and long journeys. Over time, the rhythm became habitual. It became embedded in the body like a reflex. An equally important element was keeping the inside of the snow shelter dry. Moisture from breathing could settle on the fur and freeze. This drastically reduced thermal insulation. The Indians used fur masks or pieces of cloth. They trapped water droplets and prevented them from getting on their clothes. This prevented the skin and inner clothing from getting wet. Dryness was the key to surviving for many days. Wet skin quickly turned into hard ice. It lost its flexibility and warmth. Therefore, controlling humidity was a constant task. Even breathing was consciously regulated. The Indians directed their exhaled air into a specially left opening. This reduced the formation of ice inside the shelter. Such small details determined the outcome of the struggle for life. Without them, the snow cocoon would have turned into a trap. It was attention to detail that made the method work. In addition to physical techniques, there were also mental practices. They helped to cope with pain and fear. Warriors immersed themselves in a special state of concentration. They imagined an inner sun or a fire in their chest. This helped them to remain calm. Modern research confirms that such images do indeed affect the body. Skin temperature may rise slightly. Native Americans knew this long before science did. They passed these practices down orally, from older to younger, from generation to generation. This allowed them to maintain clarity of mind even on the brink of death. Mental resilience became as much a weapon as a knife or a bow. The cold beat down on the body, but the mind remained focused. This is what saved them on the most terrible nights. In the icy emptiness of the prairie, it was crucial. But how did they cope with the terrible weather when the blizzard lasted for several days? Surviving one night is already a feat, but enduring 3 or 4 days seems impossible. In the next chapter, we will examine the survival diet and find out which foods provided energy to warm the body. You will be surprised at how concentrated and well thought out the diet of the Indian Scouts was. Are you ready to learn about the menu that allowed them to convert fat into pure thermal energy? In winter survival conditions without fire, eating was not just a way to satisfy hunger, but a process of fueling a biological reactor. The Indians of the Great Plains understood that carbohydrates provide a quick burst of energy that fades instantly, leaving the body vulnerable. For long, cold nights, they needed slow fuel that could keep their metabolism burning steadily for hours. This fuel was animal fat, which was consumed in huge amounts as part of pemmican. Pemmican is a superfood of the past, consisting of dried meat, fat, and sour berries. It did not freeze in the cold and provided a tremendous amount of calories in a small volume. Bison or deer fat was gradually absorbed by the body, releasing heat during the chemical breakdown in the liver. The Indians called this internal fire, which warms the blood from within. Before going to bed, hunters would eat a few handfuls of pemmican to keep them going all night. The sour berries in the mixture helped break down heavy fats and provided the body with vitamins. This allowed them to maintain a high metabolic rate even when completely immobile. This diet was the result of thousands of years of experience, living in extremely low temperatures. In addition to solid food, water consumption was of great importance, although it was difficult to find it in liquid form in winter. The Indians knew that dehydration leads to rapid thickening of the blood and slowing of blood circulation, which leads to frostbite. They never ate pure snow, as melting it inside the body consumes too much precious heat. Instead, they used special pouches made from animal bladders, which they carried under their clothes close to their bodies. The warmth of their skin slowly melted the snow, turning it into room temperature water. This provided them with drinking water without wasting internal energy on heating the ice. Certain herbs and roots that had a vasodilatory effect were also an important part of the winter diet. Indigenous peoples used the bark of certain trees and dried seeds, which when chewed, caused blood to rush to the extremities. This helped prevent frostbite on the fingers and toes, which are the most vulnerable parts of the body. These natural stimulants acted gently, without causing exhaustion of the nervous system, unlike modern energy drinks. Knowledge of the forest pharmacy allowed the Indians to adjust the state of their bodies, depending on the severity of weather conditions. Some tribes had a tradition of consuming bone marrow, which was considered the most valuable source of energy. Bone marrow is rich in fatty acids and trace elements that strengthen the immune system and increase overall resistance to cold. Hunters always cut open the bones of hunted animals to obtain this energy concentrate. It gave a feeling of deep warmth that spread throughout the body almost instantly. This approach to nutrition made Native Americans virtually self-sufficient in the winter forest or prairie. They did not depend on hot soup as long as they had a supply of pemmican and bone marrow in their bags. Ready to learn the truth about why Native Americans rarely traveled alone in winter? The hidden truth that many people don't talk about is that survival without fire was a collective art. In the Great Plains, a single person had far less chance of surviving a harsh night than a group of 3 or 4 people. Native Americans used a method of thermal symbiosis, where several bodies were combined into a single thermal system. This allowed them not only to combine their heat, but also to exponentially reduce the heat loss of each participant. Collective sleep was the highest form of trust in tactical planning. The group laid down in a star or circle formation, with everyone's feet pointing toward the center and their bodies pressed tightly together. They covered themselves with several layers of heavy skins, which created a common air dome. In the center of such a structure, the temperature could be 15 to 20 degrees higher than outside. The most experienced warriors lay on the edges, taking the brunt of the cold, while the younger or more tired ones were in the center. Every few hours, they would switch places to ensure that all members of the group got an equal amount of rest. This method of sleeping allowed the group to get by with a minimum amount of equipment, as shared skins worked more effectively than individual ones. In addition, there was always one person on duty in the group who did not sleep and monitored the condition of his comrades and the surrounding environment. He could notice signs of frostbite in a sleeping person or the approach of danger in time. The duty was rotated, allowing everyone to get their share of deep sleep. Collective discipline turned a group of people into a single living organism capable of withstanding the icy elements. It was a social technology of survival, honed over centuries. Interestingly, the Indians also used this method to warm wounded or weakened members of the tribe. A person who had lost too much strength was laid between two healthy warriors, who literally shared their warmth with him. This allowed him to quickly regain his strength without using fires, which could expose the group. The thermal support of fellow tribesmen was a crucial factor in preserving the population during harsh winters. This fostered a sense of incredible unity and responsibility for one another. In a world where frost kills instantly, the closeness of another person was more valuable than gold. Even the way they breathed in a group was synchronized. Participants tried to breathe in unison so that the warm exhaled air remained under the common canopy of skins. This created the effect of a steam bath, which, despite a certain discomfort, did an excellent job of maintaining the temperature. They knew that every exhalation was a loss of heat, and they tried to return it back into the system. Such thriftiness with their body's resources was the basis of their life. Collective intelligence and collective warmth made the impossible possible, turning the icy desert into a place where it was possible to live. In the next chapter, you will learn how Native Americans used the properties of different types of fur and why wolf skin was valued more than deer skin. We will examine the material basis of their winter wardrobe and learn the secrets of tanning that made the skin impervious to wind. Are you ready to find out which animal gave the Indians the most reliable protection from death? The material culture of the indigenous peoples of North America, in terms of winter clothing, was the pinnacle of practical bioengineering of its time. These solutions were born not for beauty, but for survival. For centuries, people tested their clothing in the harshest conditions. Each element had a specific purpose. A mistake in the choice of material could cost a life. Therefore, the approach was extremely precise and well thought out. The Indians did not just use any skins, but consciously selected specific types of fur for different tasks and climates. They took into account temperature, humidity, and the duration of the journey. For long winter journeys and nights without fire, bison hides were always preferred. Animals hunted in late autumn were especially prized. It was at this time that the fur was the thickest and warmest. Autumn bison had a thick undercoat saturated with air, which created a reliable barrier against the cold. Such a skin retained heat even in strong winds. Its size allowed an adult man to be completely wrapped in several layers. The result was a shelter comparable to a modern high-end sleeping bag. A person could sleep directly on the snow without losing heat. This was vital in the open spaces of the plains. Special attention was paid to the tanning process. The Indians used the animal's own brain to soften the skin. This method made the material soft, elastic, and resistant to frost. Even in extreme cold, such leather did not stiffen or crack. It retained its shape and did not lose its protective properties. This allowed the clothing to serve for many years. Additional protection was provided by treating the surface of the skin with fat. The fat made the material water repellent and protected it from snow. This was crucial in winter conditions. Wet clothing quickly drew away heat and led to hypothermia. The Indians were well aware of this danger. Therefore, the quality of tanning was considered a matter of life and death. The technology of skin processing was passed down through the female line and guarded as valuable knowledge. Every woman learned this craft from childhood. The process took many days and required patience. Each skin went through several stages of processing. This required not only skill, but also a deep understanding of the properties of the materials. Those who mastered this art were respected by the tribe. The fur of other animals was used to protect the hands, feet, and face. Wolf and coyote fur was valued for its special hair structure. It hardly formed any frost from breathing. Therefore, it was used to make the edges of hoods and protective masks. This prevented frostbite on the face and nose. Such details could save lives in a blizzard. Otter and beaver fur was used for mittens and shoes because of its water resistance. Winter moccasins had a complex, multi-layered construction. Inside was a soft sock made of fawn fur to retain heat. Outside was durable leather to protect against snow and ice. Dry grass was placed between the layers for additional insulation and cushioning. Native American clothing was never a static system. It was designed to be modular and flexible. People could add or remove elements depending on the weather and workload. Fur vests, capes, and separate leggings were used. Everything was fastened so as not to interfere with movement. This provided freedom and control over warmth. The main rule was to prevent perspiration. Sweat quickly froze in the cold and destroyed the thermal insulation. Native Americans constantly monitored their body temperature. When actively moving, they removed excess layers. When stopping, they quickly warmed up again. The ability to maintain a balance between warmth and overheating was considered a sign of an experienced hunter of the Great Plains. Surviving a winter night without fire required not only physical training, but also a special state of mind. The Lakota and Cheyenne Indians were raised from childhood to respect the cold, perceiving it as a strict but fair teacher. Cold was not considered an enemy to be fought at all costs. It was accepted as part of the world that could not be ignored. This attitude fostered inner discipline and attentiveness to one's own body. The psychological resilience of warriors was based on fatalism and a deep belief in the protection of their guardian spirits. The man knew that not everything depended on him, and this reduced his fear. When a person does not panic, their pulse remains steady and their blood vessels do not constrict too much from stress. This allowed them to maintain normal blood supply to their limbs even in critical situations. Calmness was as much a protection as a fur cloak. One of the practices was meditation on the inner flame. The hunter closed his eyes and imagined a small ember burning in his solar plexus. He mentally fueled it with his breath and attention. Gradually, the warmth seemed to spread throughout his body. This helped him not to focus on the cold. Modern science confirms that focused attention can affect blood microcirculation. Native Americans used this knowledge long before scientific explanations appeared. They warmed their fingers and toes at times when physical activity was impossible. This was especially important during long ambushes or observations. Controlling attention replaced movement. They did not fight the cold. They accepted it as part of the surrounding world, trying to become one with it. This state of inner harmony reduced tension. The body stopped wasting excess energy. A feeling of transparency and lightness arose. This state helped them survive the longest hours before dawn. An Indian's sleep on a frosty night was superficial, similar to that of an animal. He was in a state of semi-wakefulness and did not lose touch with his surroundings. This allowed him to react instantly to changes in his body temperature. Sleep was short and intermittent, but it still provided rest. If any part of his body began to go numb, he unconsciously changed position or made a few muscle contractions. These movements were almost imperceptible. It was a refined habit that worked on an instinctive level. This mode of rest allowed the brain to recover, but did not allow the body to shut down to a dangerous extent. The art of controlled sleep was a mandatory skill for those who went on deep reconnaissance missions. Songs and prayers whispered under their breath before falling asleep played an important role. The monotonous rhythm helped calm their breathing and slow their thoughts. They entered a trance-like state. Time passed more quickly, and discomfort was less noticeable. This helped them cope with loneliness. It was a form of self-hypnosis that protected the mind from panic and despair. The culture of survival songs was widespread among the peoples of the North. These sounds served as an anchor for the consciousness. They kept it grounded in reality and prevented it from sinking into dangerous apathy. It was precisely this apathy that often preceded freezing. The most dangerous moment of winter survival was not sleep itself, but the process of waking up. Many believed that the night was already over, but this was a dangerous misconception. Morning often became the most treacherous time of day. A person was weakened, immobilized, and not yet ready for exertion. A mistake in those moments could cost a life. The Indians understood this threat perfectly well. When the sun began to rise, the temperature often dropped to its lowest point of the day. The cold gripped the earth more tightly than at night. The body at rest was at its most vulnerable. Blood circulation slowed, muscles cooled. Even breathing was shallow and cautious. At such moments, special discipline was required. The Indians knew that they could not jump up abruptly and leave their warm cocoon. A sudden movement destroyed the fragile balance of heat inside the body. This could lead to a rapid outflow of warm blood from the internal organs to the cold limbs. The result was shock, dizziness, or loss of consciousness. In freezing conditions, this was deadly dangerous. Therefore, every morning began with the same caution. Waking up was a slow ritual aimed at gradually warming up the entire system. This ritual was formed over years of practice and observation. It was passed down from elders to juniors as a rule of survival. There was no rush or improvisation here. All movements had a clear purpose. The main thing was to keep the heat inside the body. First, the warrior began to move his fingers and toes without leaving the furs. These small movements awakened the nerves and blood vessels. Then he moved on to rotating movements of his hands and feet. Everything happened slowly and consciously. The body gradually responded with warmth. This was a sign that the blood had begun to move more actively. Only when he felt a rush of warmth to the extremities did he begin to actively rub his chest and abdominal muscles. These areas were considered vital. Such rubbing accelerated metabolism and prepared the heart for exertion. His breathing became deeper and more even. Sometimes the warrior would quietly exhale steam, watching its rhythm. The whole process could take up to 20 minutes. Only after making sure that his internal engine was running at full power did the Indian decide to throw back the fur blanket. This moment required special determination. The transition from the warm microclimate of the cocoon to the icy reality of the morning was a real test. The skin immediately felt the cold, but the body was already prepared for this shock. Without such preparation, the morning could have been the last. Immediately after rising, it was necessary to eat a portion of fatty food to replenish the energy lost during the night. If possible, the warrior would take a few sips of warm water, which he kept under his clothes. This was followed by vigorous movements or running in place. This finally got the blood flowing through the body. The Indians knew that the first few minutes after sleep were the most dangerous for frostbite. They examined each other, helped each other warm up, and thus saved the lives of the entire squad. The survival methods of Native Americans are not just a historical curiosity, but a solid foundation for modern knowledge about human behavior in extreme conditions. This knowledge was not born in laboratories, but in a real struggle for life. Each technique was tested by cold, hunger, and time. Mistakes were not forgiven, so only practical solutions survived. That is why their experience remains relevant to this day. It is based on reality, not theory. Many of these techniques form the basis of training for elite military units and Arctic explorers. Modern instructors often use the same principles, albeit in a different form. We see that even without high technology, humans are capable of adapting to the harshest challenges of nature. This does not require gadgets, but knowledge and discipline. Respect for the environment plays a crucial role. Nature is not an enemy if you understand its laws. The wisdom of the Lakota, Crow, and Cheyenne teaches us that the main resource is always within ourselves. It is not weapons or equipment. It is the ability to think, remain calm, and make the right decisions. Mind and will help them survive where technology would have been useless. It was a person's inner state that determined the outcome of the struggle against the cold. This principle remains unchanged today. Their experience proves that harmony with nature is not about giving up the fight, but about using its laws wisely. The Indians did not go against the elements directly. They observed and adapted. The laws of physics and biology became their allies. Snow became insulation, and fat became a source of energy. It was practical science born of necessity. The use of group warmth as a resource and proper nutrition as fuel are striking examples of this approach. Indigenous peoples turned the art of survival into a philosophy of life. The cold ceased to be an enemy and became part of everyday life. People did not waste their energy on fear, they directed it toward action. This attitude shaped a unique view of the world in which humans were part of nature, not its masters. Studying the way of life of the peoples of the Great Plains allows us to take a fresh look at the capabilities of the human body. We begin to understand that the limits of endurance are much broader than they seem from our warm and safe homes. Every story about Native Americans is a story of life's victory over emptiness and cold. Their path is a hymn to ingenuity and fortitude. This knowledge has been passed down through generations and has come down to us as a silent but accurate survival manual, left in the snow and hardened by frost. We hope this issue has helped you take a fresh look at the history and culture of the indigenous peoples of North America. Their ability to survive without fire or shelter is a true masterpiece of human thought, deserving of deep respect. This knowledge reminds us of the importance of staying connected to our roots and understanding the laws of nature in which we live. Which of the Native American survival tactics did you find most impressive? Could you apply the snow cocoon method in real life? Share your thoughts in the comments. Also, write what other topics from the life of Indigenous peoples you would be interested in exploring in future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the amazing pages of human history with us.